Hey everybody, John Lorden here. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. This one recorded for December 6th, 2017. And I have to tell all of you out there, I just got off a very tough phone call with a Vietnam vet who has a very important question. Where is my son, Shane Workman? And that's what we're going to talk about on today's Searchlight. Just so you can see a picture of him real quick, this is Mike Hewitt. He is the father looking for Shane. And here we have a picture of Shane from a post that was put up on Facebook at missinghomeless.org. Shane Workman, missing from Lewistown, Pennsylvania since April 25th, 2017. We can see that he's been missing since a Tuesday evening, last seen walking to Sheets at 4th Street, Lewistown, on April 25th. Let's go to NamUs to get some more details on this case. Shane Workman, missing since April 25th, 2017, and they note 10 o'clock here. They don't really say if it's AM or PM. Luckily, when I was speaking to his father, Mike, I asked for clarification on that. Mike says that Shane was last seen between 10 and 11 p.m. He's 31 years old, a white male. For his height, there's a bit of a range here. They've got him somewhere between 5'9" to 6 feet tall, and for weight, we have him at 170 to 175 pounds. Of course, we know he's from Lewistown, Pennsylvania. Shane was last seen leaving his home and has not returned. He was to be walking to Sheets in Lewistown, 1 block from his home. Shane has a tribal tattoo on his neck. He also has tattoos on his legs, back, and arms. And we'll get into some more details on his tattoos once we get into the notes of my phone call with his father. Black hair, it is normally short, brown eyes, and once again, they're noting tattoos on his legs, arms, back, and neck, though they don't really have the detail in here, which typically these NamUs profiles are very good about details like that. But admittedly, Shane has a lot of different tattoos, so it might be hard to get all that detail in there. For the clothing that he was wearing when he was last seen, we have a red hooded sweatshirt, blue jeans, and sneakers. Outside of that, there was no transportation method. We know that he was walking, supposedly just a block or so. No dental information. Looks like the DNA sample has been submitted. Fingerprint information not currently available, which is a little strange. Shane has had some run-ins with the law over the years. It's one of the things that I honestly looked at this case a few months ago, and there was one thing that I saw that kept being reported, which we're going to get to, that kind of changed my mind about looking into this case. But for some reason, when I looked at it again today, I was kind of questioning that one fact, and we're going to get to that. You guys know that I'm not shy about looking into cases where people have not been perfect. Shane certainly falls into that category. This is a guy that, he's been knocked a couple times for driving on a suspended license. This is a person that has been through rehab. He did serve some time in late 2016 for different offenses that he had committed. But his father, Mike, was helping him through that. They were getting Shane through all those problems. And it's just really interesting that now the legal system, it's really strange to me that they don't recognize missing persons. But now that he's gone missing, he missed a court date, he's missed some payments that were going towards fines that he had accrued, and now he has multiple warrants for his arrest because of missing those payments and that court date. Is that possibly a reason why he might have disappeared in the first place? His father feels very strongly that no, it's not the case. And when I talked to him about the types of things that Shane has been through, I really don't know that it was anything that was that drastic that he would have to disappear. He was already in and out of jail. I think that was a 60-day term in 2016. So I really question, unless for some reason he thought he was going to go back for stiffer charges or wind up in jail for a longer period of time, something along those lines. But after talking to his father about, was he in any trouble recently or anything like that, nothing that would indicate that he was facing anything serious like that. This is a guy that has a brother and a sister. He also has a daughter that is either 14 or 15 years old that he's very close with. And that's one of the things that Mike kept talking to me about and really drilling in was that, Shane wouldn't leave his daughter. And please keep in mind, I know some people, and you'll see this happen in the media a lot too, when they find someone's background like that, all of a sudden the case will stop being covered. This case is not just about Shane, and that's why I started this episode the way that I did. There is a family that is missing this man. Even if he has disappeared of his own accord, that family deserves to have those answers. They deserve to know that Shane's okay, even if he's somewhere else. Maybe he's dealing with something that he's not wanting to do while he's around them. They still deserve those answers. So if you are one of those people that feels like, well, we should write this guy off, he's got a past with drugs and, he keeps getting himself in trouble, I can't do it. I think there are too many other people that are affected by this, and we really have no idea what happened to Shane on his way to Sheetz that night. But we are going to get some more detail as we roll forward here. Here we see multiple pictures. Here we got a decent shot of one of his arms. So you can see quite a bit of work that he has on his arms there. And on this photo, you get a little sense of the tribal that is on his neck. There's also a Facebook group that is dedicated to this. There's a link for that in the description box below. If you click on that, there's a video. It's really short. It's like 8 or 9 seconds. Basically a collage of different photos of Shane. And there's one photo in particular in that where you can get another good shot of some of his tattoo work. So if you want to get more of that detail, please check out that video as well. Jumping over to LewistownSentinel.com, let's get some more details, at least as they were reported to the media, about his disappearance. Here we can see someone is posting or hanging a poster about Shane's disappearance at a park. Shane Workman was last seen around 10:30 p.m. walking to the Sheetz store in Lewistown. His father, Mike Hewitt of Lewistown, said his son left his West 4th Street address and told his father that he was running to Sheetz for a few minutes. That's the last time Hewitt saw or heard from his son. I actually asked Mike about this. Did Shane go to that place regularly? What would he typically get at Sheetz? And Mike said, yes, he went there frequently. He would usually, be picking up some soda or maybe get something to eat. I also did ask, was Shane a smoker? Mike says, yes, he was, but he wasn't buying packs of cigarettes necessarily. He would typically have tobacco and roll his own cigarettes. So several reasons why he might have been going to Sheetz that night, but there wasn't a particular reason noted, at least that his father can remember, about why he was going to Sheetz on that particular instance. Quote, "I just want to find my son," Hewitt said. "I haven't heard from him, and that's not him." Hewitt said he has contacted local police and they've tried to track Workman's cell phone, but it is turned off. They also said they watched video from inside the Sheetz store and found nothing. Now, that is a pretty interesting fact for them to check the video and to not be able to see him come in there, which is what I'm assuming. The way this is phrased, it's a little hard to really come to a full determination, but I'm assuming that they checked the video and they didn't see Shane show up in the video at all. So knowing that it's such a short walk, did something happen to him on his way to Sheetz, or did he tell his father he was going to Sheetz, but he was really going somewhere else? Something along those lines. I think we have to consider that. And as I mentioned, yes, this is a guy that has a history of drug abuse. Is it possible he was having a relapse? Maybe he was going to meet with someone, something along those lines. We have to consider that. I think it would be unfair not to consider that with the type of history that Shane has here. But does that mean that we just rule it off and, this guy's just a druggie and we could just forget about him? No, not at all. This is a guy that deserves every chance that this world can give him to straighten himself out, to get himself going in the right direction, and to continue to be a father to a very young daughter that's missing her dad right now. Moving on to Local 21 News. Have you seen Shane Workman? Workman last made contact on April 26th by phone, but his location was not disclosed. This is that little fact that I told you guys earlier in the video that made me double think covering this case. If we talk about a situation where someone is walking to a local liquor store and they go missing, there's a lot of different possibilities that happen there. If there is some level of foul play that's involved, it's very likely that that foul play is going to occur relatively quick. Not in every case, but in a lot of the cases that I've reviewed here, if that type of thing happens, it usually happens fairly quickly. To hear that there is a phone call made the next day and to really have no details about what this phone call is, it kind of numbs my brain a little bit. I don't understand where this fact is coming from, but it also changes the scope of what's going on in terms of him being missing. If there was a phone call the next day, the theory that he has left of his own accord all of a sudden gets a lot more merit. Now, here's where I have a big problem, and I'm so glad that I looked back into this case again, so thank you to the brain scratchers that kept suggesting this case. I spoke to his father. I asked his father about this phone call. His father knows nothing about this phone call happening. Now, I don't know why it's being reported here at local21news.com. It's being reported here at abc27.com. Contact was made with Workman by phone the next day, but his location was not known. And I found a third news source, PennLive.com. The last contact with him was April 26 by phone, but his location was not known. Police say. So here it's saying that police might be the source of that information, but once again, with how this sentence is phrased, I don't know. I don't know for sure. But I can tell you his father had no idea about this phone call. So Mike, I'm assuming that you're going to watch this video at some point. Talk to whoever is the investigator on it at this point, that's another whole side story we're going to get to when we talk about my phone call with Mike. Ask them about this phone call. What is it with this phone call? And ask them, was the call made from his cell phone? Did you guys check the cell phone towers for where that call possibly came from so they could at least get a rough area of where he was if he did use his cell phone? If he didn't use his cell phone and he did contact someone, is it possible that they could potentially try to trace that phone number to see where he was, or at least whose phone he was using when he placed that phone call? This lead, to me, is very important if there is merit in this statement. But I'm struggling a little bit with this because, like I told you guys, Mike is not familiar with this fact. And how can he not be familiar with this fact when, hopefully you'd think that the investigator is keeping you up to date on your missing son's case? Just boggles my mind, but it's only one of the few challenges that Mike has gone through on this. And let me just once again say, my heart goes out to Mike. He's dealing with a lot of kind of bizarre things happening around this case. Jumping over to merfradio.com, there was just a little local news update that they did in May of 2017. A Lewistown man is still missing after a boat search of the Juanita River Wednesday. The Lewistown Borough Police Department and boats from the City Hook and Ladder Junction and Newton Wayne Fire Companies took to the river searching for Workman. No trace of Workman was found during the search, and no other information is available at this time. And if you do look through the articles, which of course I've got all the sources in the description box below, you'll see that Mike was very, very active with conducting searches. He was constantly asking, hey, if you want to help with the search. His phone number is like literally all over the place. That's why he was so clear in putting that message out that if he felt like if anyone was willing to help him, to please call him. That's why I called him before doing this episode, which you guys know is not my usual MO for something like this. But you'll see that he was organizing a ton of different searches. He has a few people that are helping him kind of on the social media front. He's got someone that is now creating t-shirts and sweatshirts and trying to raise money to make a reward fund. If Shane did fall into some drug circle issue of some kind, I think Mike is kind of on the right track. I think the only thing that's going to shake some information loose, if that is the realm we're talking about, is having some type of reward money, some reason for someone that's in that circle to maybe reach out and send some information the right way. And if you're a person that's sitting on information in this case, regardless of what your feelings are about Shane, think about a 14 or 15-year-old little girl that doesn't know where her dad is. Think about a Vietnam vet that doesn't know where his son is. Think about a brother and a sister that have no idea where their sibling is. This story is way bigger than just Shane. It's the imprint of Shane on other people that are also being hurt at this time. And if you have some information, I hope you'll do the right thing. Look in the description box below and use that contact information and get it into the authorities so they can act on it. Moving forward, there was a GoFundMe that was running for this. If you see the GoFundMe, don't use it. Something is wrong with the status of that GoFundMe. Apparently, if you try to make payments to it, the payments don't go through for some reason. So over at You Caring, they have started another fundraiser to bring Shane home. It's only been open a couple days at this point. As you can see, they've only raised about $70 of a $5,000 goal, and that was raised by 3 donors. Other people have contributed to finding Shane. The money from the original GoFundMe was used and has basically run out. So at this point, they can't even afford posters, and they've kind of changed their focus a little bit. They're really focusing on trying to raise money for a reward. So on behalf of myself, my Patreon supporters, and my PayPal supporters, we are going to make a donation today, as soon as I'm done shooting this video, to this You Caring fundraiser, and hopefully give them a little more something to work with in terms of getting this reward money where it needs to be, so that hopefully that nugget of information will break loose and come their way. Outside of that, in the links below, you will find the Facebook group to help find Shane. Web Sleuths also has a thread that's going on this. A bunch of good links that they had here, including some of Shane's history. We can see they've got court documents in here. That's kind of where I learned a little bit about some of the trouble that he had, particularly in late 2016. And finally, there is also his official Facebook page, which once again, we get a decent picture of some of the artwork that you can see on his arms. So you can see, get at least a sense of how many tattoos this guy had. So what else came out of my phone call with Mike? First of all, I asked about Shane. Was he working? What was going on through this? Yes, Shane was working. He had been a carpenter for a few years at this point. Even though he did serve time, he got back to work as soon as he came out. Once again, like I mentioned, he's very close with his daughter. Mike is relatively convinced that something happened to Shane specifically because of this point. He does not think that Shane would stay out of contact with his daughter. And he was really proud to talk about some of the things that Shane had done for her, helped her purchase a horse. He kicked in on some of the money with her grandparents to get her a horse, got her a very nice saddle. And Mike actually spoke about the person that's helping him in terms of making shirts, and the fact that they are making a special sweatshirt for his daughter that says, "Please help find my dad." Shane's boss and several other coworkers have been donating funds privately to Mike as well to aid in the search. And let's see here. So I mentioned his history. This is a guy that has been in rehab, did I think about 60 days in jail in late 2016. But now, because of him being missing, he has missed a court date, and he's missed some payments to his fines, and now has 4 warrants. Still, despite all that, I was very clear with Mike, and I kind of asked him this in a few different ways. Is this the kind of trouble that you would really imagine that Shane would run away from everything for? And Mike certainly does not believe that. And Mike was pretty clear that he would do everything he can to help Shane out of whatever type of trouble he was in there. So if by chance, Shane, you see this video and you are out there because you're having trouble dealing with something, just know your dad, the guy loves you. It's very, very clear to me when we spoke. He got emotional at a couple of points. He really just wants to bring you home. If you are running from some sort of trouble, whatever that trouble is, I'm certain your father is willing to help you with that. So outside of that, I asked Mike to at least give me some detail on the tattoos. So Shane does have his name tattooed on his arm, the tribal piece tattooed on his neck. On his back is a cross. On his legs, he described it as skulls and vines on his legs. So there we at least get some detail about the tattoos. Now here is some of the challenges that Mike has gone through in terms of dealing with this case. First of all, for some reason, the local police passed the case off to the state level police. And I told Mike, I've never quite heard of that in a case like this before. Typically, they'll kind of work together sometimes. You might have a local jurisdiction ask state level and say, hey, we need some resources on this. Specifically, at least as Mike was told, this case was passed on to the state level because the local jurisdiction was too short on personnel to process this case. Then, several months later, and literally this is news that Mike has just found out within the past couple days, he's calling his contact at the state level, and the state is now saying, well, we're getting this case all together and we're going to hand it back to the local jurisdiction. It sounds horribly inefficient to me. It sounds like I don't know if this case is being worked on while it's going through this process of being handed back and forth from one police department to another. It seems really unfortunate, and I completely understand why Mike would be frustrated at what's going on around this. Little interesting fact, there is a woman that is helping Mike with the t-shirts that I had mentioned before, and they're raising money and saving it for a potential reward. Apparently, she got a phone call from a blocked number, and someone told her that Shane is actually in witness protection. Now, I spoke to Mike about this a little bit. I don't know what that's about. Could it be just a straight up prank call of some kind? Possibly. People do terrible things around cases like this, unfortunately. But could it also be someone that wants them to stop trying to look for him? Possibly. The big question I have is, if Shane is as close with his family as it seems like he is, would he really even allow himself to go into witness protection, even if he had to testify against someone for something? Particularly knowing you have a 14 or 15-year-old daughter out there. Mike didn't think so. And he did tell me they've had weird phone calls that came in before saying this and saying that. And it's just one of those things that happens in these cases, and it's terrible. And I wish people wouldn't do things like that. But potentially the person that made this call could have been trying to protect someone else's interests. I mentioned that they had spent all the previous money from the GoFundMe. He also mentioned that he had several mediums that started approaching them. And literally, he was listening to those mediums, and they were driving him around to different locations to try to find his son, and burning through gas money, using up these funds that they had collected. And of course, none of that ever paid out. I asked him, because I told him, I'm like, in several cases, I've heard about this happening. Did you feel like this was helpful in this case? And he was very quick to say no. If anything, I thought that this was hurtful. He once again got emotional around this topic and told me about a specific instance where one of the mediums was sitting across from him, telling him that I can see your son sitting right next to you right now, and effectively that your son is dead. Really, really terrible to hear that, and it kind of broke my heart to hear that coming from a family member that is missing their loved one. It's already such a horrible place to be in, and to have other people come in with information like that. I just don't, you know what? If you're a medium and you really think that you have an answer like that, go find the body. There's no reason why you have to upset the family with stuff like that. Go locate the body and then tell the police about it, and the police will contact the family. Why do you have to go talk to this man and drag him around looking for his son, telling him, oh, your son's over here, your son's probably over there? I don't get it. So Brain Scratchers, can you help us find Shane Workman? Let me tell you, in his construction work, he has traveled quite a bit, so we need to focus on sharing this video, getting this exposure and his image out in Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina. He's basically worked all over the East Coast. So if you have friends in those areas, I ask you, please help us with this case. Please send them a link to this video. Let's see if someone out there has some information about what has happened to Shane. Just want to say thank you to Mike for spending some time with me today. I know this wasn't easy to talk about. I really appreciate you being able to do that. He's been working really hard to find his son, so my heart goes out to you, as well as Shane's family, his brother, his sister, his daughter. If any of you happen to see this, know that there are people out here that care, and we do want to see Shane find his way home. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of BrainScratch Searchlight, everyone. I will see you back here tomorrow on the Lord and Arts channel.